At exactly 4:55 a.m., just hours after his wife vanished, Brian Walshe typed a search into Google that would send chills through even the most hardened detectives: how to dispose of a 115-pound body. But that was only the beginning. Over the next 24 hours, Brian's digital trail revealed a disturbing sequence of searches. How long before a body starts to smell? Best tools for dismembering? Can police track Google searches? And here's the most shocking part: there's still no body. So, the question is, can a man be convicted of murder when no one has found the victim? This is the case of Brian Walshe, and it might change how digital evidence is used in court forever. A new year usually means a fresh start, right? Full of hope, new resolutions. But for the Walshe family in Cohasset, Massachusetts, New Year's Day 2023 kicked off a mystery that would have the whole country watching. Ana Walshe, a 39-year-old mom of 3 and a successful real estate exec, just vanished. Her husband, Brian Walshe, initially said she'd rushed off for a work emergency in Washington, D.C. before dawn. But as days stretched into a week, Ana's phone didn't ping, her account stayed untouched, and there was zero trace of her trip. The story Brian was telling started to unravel, showing cracks that investigators just couldn't overlook. So, what really happened to Ana Walshe? Prosecutors think the answer isn't with witnesses or a confession, but tucked away in the cold, digital logs of a child's iPad. The last time anyone apart from her husband reportedly saw Ana Walshe alive was in the very early hours of January 1, 2023. She and Brian had friends over for New Year's Eve at their place in Cohasset. According to Brian, Ana got called away for an urgent work thing in D.C., where she often traveled for her real estate job. He claimed she left their house between 6 and 7 a.m., kissed him goodbye, said she'd be back soon. But the details? They were fuzzy. There was no record of her booking a rideshare that morning. No one saw her at Logan Airport. No sign she ever got on a flight to D.C. And for 3 critical days, Brian Walshe didn't report his wife missing. It was actually Ana's employer in D.C. who sounded the alarm on January 4th, worried because she hadn't shown up for work. Only then did Brian call the police. The initial search for Ana was intense. Friends and colleagues described her as a super devoted mom to her 3 young sons, a hard-working professional, not someone who'd just disappear without a word. The community came together, really hoping she'd return safely. But as investigators started to look closer at Brian Walshe's version of those first few days of the new year, a much more unsettling picture began to take shape. His story, police would soon claim, was full of holes and suspicious actions. The image of a worried husband desperately looking for his missing wife? That started to crumble, revealing something far more sinister. His behavior after she vanished seemed less like a man worried about his missing wife and more like a man with something to hide. As the search for Ana ramped up, so did the focus on Brian Walshe. His initial cooperation with the police? That soon shifted to actions investigators found pretty alarming. He said that on January 1st, the day Ana supposedly left for D.C., he was running errands for his mother. But then, surveillance footage apparently showed him at a Home Depot on January 2nd. And what was he buying? $450 worth of cleaning supplies, tarps, mops, tape, buckets, even a Tyvek suit with boot covers. That's a strange shopping list for a guy whose wife just unexpectedly took off for a work trip, isn't it? His statements to police about his movements and Ana's supposed departure just didn't add up. He first told officers he'd last seen Ana when she took a rideshare to the airport around 6 or 7 a.m. on New Year's Day. But investigators found no proof of this rideshare. He also claimed he'd spent New Year's Day with his kids. Cell phone data, however, allegedly told a different story, showing him traveling to areas near a trash transfer station in Abington and another in Brockton. Definitely not on his way to his mom's. The pressure was on. On January 8th, Brian Walshe was arrested. Not for murder but for misleading investigators. Police said they had probable cause to believe he'd deliberately messed with their efforts to find Ana. And when they searched the Walshe family home, investigators made some grim discoveries in the basement: bloodstains and a damaged, bloody knife. The pieces were starting to click into a very disturbing puzzle, but the most damning evidence was still to come, hidden in plain sight on his son's iPad. This device would allegedly reveal a series of chilling internet searches, typed out in the very hours and days Ana was missing. Searches that didn't talk about a missing person but about getting rid of a body. The real game-changer in the investigation came from analyzing an iPad belonging to one of Brian and Ana's young sons. In the quiet, early hours of January 1, 2023, right after Ana was last seen, and continuing over the next couple of days, a series of Google searches were allegedly made on this device. These weren't just random thoughts, they read like a gruesome how-to guide. Prosecutors laid out a timeline of these searches that paints a truly horrifying picture. At 4:55 a.m. on January 1st, how long before a body starts to smell? A few minutes later, how to stop a body from decomposing. Later that day and into January 2nd and 3rd, the alleged queries continued, getting more specific and more disturbing. 10 ways to dispose of a dead body if you really need to. How long for someone to be missing to inherit? Dismemberment and the best ways to dispose of a body. Hacksaw best tool to dismember. Can you be charged with murder without a body? Can identification be made on partial remains? And, how to clean blood from wooden floor. The timing here is so important. These searches kicked off just hours after Ana was supposedly on her way to the airport for a work emergency. They lined up with Brian's unexplained trip to Home Depot for cleaning supplies, and with his alleged visits to trash facilities. Investigators believe this digital trail wasn't just a list of questions. It was a record of intent, a step-by-step plan for covering up an awful crime. The man who claimed to be a worried husband had, according to this evidence, been researching how to make a body vanish. Now the defense is fighting back against this search evidence. They're arguing that investigators might have overstepped when they got permission to search the devices. The claim is they were initially looking for messages about Ana's whereabouts, not doing a deep dive into search histories. As of mid-2025, these pretrial motions are still in play, with hearings digging into how exactly this critical evidence was obtained. The defense lawyers are saying Walshe's rights were violated, questioning if the consent given for the device searches was truly transparent and legal. But for the prosecution, these Google searches are the heart of their case. Ana Walshe's digital ghost pointing right at her husband. Trying to prosecute a murder without a body is a massive challenge in the legal world. There's no definite proof of death, no traditional crime scene, and no victim to examine to find out how they died. Juries can be pretty reluctant to convict when the actual murder, let alone who did it, depends entirely on circumstantial evidence. As legal expert Daniel Medwed from Northeastern University School of Law put it, it's an obstacle, but it's not insurmountable. In any no-body case there is going to be doubt, so all of the circumstantial evidence has to be airtight. In Massachusetts they have managed to get murder convictions in no-body cases before, but the bar for proof is incredibly high. The prosecution has to weave together a really convincing story from all these different bits of evidence, creating a picture so clear that it erases all reasonable doubt. And that's exactly what the Norfolk County District Attorney's Office is trying to do with Brian Walshe. Those Google searches? They're the backbone of this strategy. They offer a chilling look into what prosecutors allege was Brian Walshe's mindset and actions in the hours and days after Ana disappeared. When you combine them with other evidence, the blood and damaged knife in the basement, Brian's $450 shopping spree for cleaning supplies, his misleading statements to the cops, and his cell phone data allegedly putting him near trash disposal sites, the searches suddenly look less like random questions and more like a potential blueprint for a crime. Prosecutors argue that all these things, when you look at them together, tell a story of a man who didn't just idly wonder about disposing of a body but actually took steps that line up with such a horrific act. The search for how to clean blood from wooden floor, followed by finding blood in the basement. The searches for dismemberment and hacksaw best tool to dismember, followed by finding a hacksaw in a dumpster near his mother's place. These connections, they say, are just too direct, too coincidental to ignore. The digital footprints in this scenario basically become a modern-day witness, silently testifying to a series of events that Brian Walshe himself has allegedly tried to cover up. The challenge for the prosecution will be to make this digital witness speak so loudly and clearly that the absence of Ana's body becomes less important in the face of all the circumstantial proof. While those Google searches gave a shocking glimpse into alleged intent, the physical investigation started to turn up its own grim findings. Beyond the bloodstains and the damaged, bloody knife found in the Walshe home's basement, investigators zeroed in on what Brian Walshe might have thrown out in those critical early days of January 2023. His trip to Home Depot on January 2nd, where he bought $450 worth of cleaning supplies like tarps, mops, and that Tyvek suit, was already a huge red flag. Then came the really tough work, sifting through trash. Investigators tracked Brian's movements to various waste transfer stations and dumpsters, including one near his mother's home in Swampscott. And what they reportedly found was pretty damning. According to prosecutors, 10 bags of trash pulled from a transfer station in Peabody held items linked to Ana and the alleged cleanup. This included some of Ana Walshe's personal belongings, her COVID-19 vaccination card and a necklace that looked just like one she was known to wear. But there was more. The bags also allegedly contained a hacksaw, a hatchet, a rug and cleaning supplies that matched what Brian bought. Critically, many of these items reportedly had bloodstains on them. DNA testing would later connect some of this evidence to Ana Walshe. The discovery of a hacksaw especially echoed that chilling Google search for hacksaw best tool to dismember. The prosecution alleges these items are direct physical proof of Brian Walshe's efforts to get rid of his wife's body and clean up the crime scene. You've got his digital research into dismemberment and body disposal, then the purchase of cleaning tools, and then finding those tools and other related items, some bloody and linked to Ana, in trash facilities he visited. It all forms a powerful narrative. Each piece of physical evidence, they argue, lines up with and reinforces the story told by his Google search history. The blood in the basement suggested a violent event. The cleaning supplies and discarded items suggested a desperate cover-up. Together, they helped fill the void left by Ana's missing body, allowing prosecutors to charge Brian Walshe not just with misleading them, but with the murder of his wife. Brian Walshe has pleaded not guilty to everything: murder, misleading police, and improper conveyance of a human body. His defense team, led by attorney Tracy Minor, has a massive job ahead of them: to pick apart the prosecution's story, which, even though it's circumstantial, is heavily loaded with that digital and physical evidence. A key part of their strategy is to attack the evidence itself, how it was found and what it means. As we mentioned, they're fighting hard against the Google search data from the son's iPad. They're arguing that the permission Brian Walshe gave might have been limited or obtained improperly, possibly violating his constitutional rights. If they manage to get this crucial digital evidence thrown out, it could seriously weaken the prosecution's case. Recent court hearings in May and June 2025 have been all about these motions to suppress, with investigators testifying about the probe. The defense is also likely to hammer home the point that Ana Walshe's body is still missing. That old saying, "no body, no crime," while not a strict legal rule, definitely plays into the idea of reasonable doubt. They'll probably suggest that without a body, there's no absolute proof Ana is dead, let alone murdered. They might offer other explanations for why she disappeared or argue that the prosecution's case is just built on guesswork and a string of unfortunate, but not necessarily guilty, coincidences. On top of that, the defense has pointed out potential problems with the investigation itself. They've drawn connections to the controversial Karen Reed case, because one of the lead investigators in the Walshe case, Trooper Michael Proctor, was also heavily involved in the Reed investigation. Proctor faced criticism for his conduct there, including some inappropriate texts. While prosecutors have said they won't call Proctor to testify in the Walshe trial, the defense has asked for his records, arguing they could show bias or a lack of integrity. This tactic aims to make the jury question the overall professionalism and fairness of the police work. The defense will argue that Brian Walshe's Google searches, even if unsettling, don't equal a murder confession. They might say the searches were taken out of context, or that maybe someone else used the iPad. They'll stress that there's no definitive murder weapon, though a knife was found, no clear motive presented by the prosecution besides a reported life insurance policy, and ultimately no victim's remains. Their main point will likely be that all this circumstantial evidence just doesn't meet that super high bar of airtight proof needed for a murder conviction, especially when there's no body. The trial, set to start with jury selection in October 2025, is going to be a real battle of stories, all depending on whether the jury believes that digital trail tells the undeniable truth. The disappearance of Ana Walshe and her husband Brian's subsequent arrest quickly became a story that fascinated and horrified people, not just in Massachusetts, but all over the country and even internationally, especially given Ana's Serbian background. Why did it grab so much attention? Well, several things. You had the seemingly perfect image of a successful suburban family suddenly torn apart by a dark mystery. Then there's the fact that Ana was a mom to 3 young kids, their lives changed forever. And let's be honest, Brian Walshe himself was an unsettling figure, already known to the law for art fraud, which added a layer of suspicion right from the start. But maybe the most gripping part of this case, the thing that really hits home today, is the role of Brian Walshe's alleged Google searches. The idea that someone's private online queries could be the key to cracking a murder investigation is both fascinating and a bit scary, isn't it? It really highlights a modern truth: our digital footprints are everywhere and they often last forever. We leave bits of our thoughts, intentions, and actions with every click, every search, every message. In Ana Walshe's case, these digital breadcrumbs allegedly led investigators down a path her husband tried so hard to hide. This case shows how much criminal justice is changing. Digital forensics isn't just some niche thing anymore. It's a huge part of many investigations. For prosecutors, it gives them powerful new ways to build timelines, show intent, and back up other evidence. For defense attorneys, it means new battles to protect their clients' privacy rights and to question how digital data is interpreted and how reliable it really is. If Brian Walshe is convicted, especially with the digital evidence playing such a big role in a no-body case, it could really set a stronger precedent for these kinds of prosecutions. It's a stark reminder that even the most carefully planned crime can be unraveled by the data trails we don't even realize we're leaving. It also makes us think about privacy versus security, and how much our online lives can be used to define us, especially when we're accused of something so serious. As the trial gets closer, the world is watching not just for the verdict but for what this case will say about justice in our super-connected world. As of June 2025, Brian Walshe is still behind bars, waiting for his trial, which is scheduled for October 2025. He insists he's innocent. Meanwhile, the prosecution is getting ready to argue that his actions, and most damningly his Google searches, prove his guilt in the murder of his wife, Ana Walshe. Ana's body has never been found, a silent, haunting piece of the mystery that still surrounds her final moments. His alleged Google history, that list of dark questions typed in the dead of night, tells a very different story from the one he showed the world. Whether a jury will decide that this digital story proves murder beyond a reasonable doubt is something we'll have to wait and see. But one thing's for sure, the Walshe case has carved its place in true crime history. It's a chilling example of how, even with no body, the internet's memory can speak volumes, potentially giving a voice to a victim who can no longer speak for herself. In the end, it might just be Brian Walshe's own online curiosity that seals his fate. The disappearance of Ana Walshe and the disturbing evidence against her husband Brian really make you think about how digital trails can tell a story that words try to keep hidden. If you found this look into the case compelling, please hit that like button and subscribe for more true crime analysis. We'd love to hear your thoughts. What do you think about the role of Google searches and other digital evidence in solving crimes, especially in no-body cases? Let us know in the comments below.